Welcome, and in this video course we are looking at the CyberOps Associate version 1 course. This course is going to cover the skills and knowledge needed for successfully handling the tasks and duties, responsibilities of an associate level security analyst working at a security operations center. The goal of this video series is to help prepare learners for the Cisco 200-201 certification that's focusing on understanding the Cisco Cybersecurity Operation Fundamentals course known as CBROPS. Module 19, Access Control. In this module, we're looking at access control concepts, basically explaining how access control protocols actually function, and we're going to be looking at AAA, the usage and the operation. So let's go and jump right on in. Access control concepts normally look at the CIA triad: confidentiality, integrity, availability. Confidentiality is keeping information confident and only allowing access to them to those that need access. Integrity refers to the protection of that data by unauthorized alteration. Now, the alteration can happen in motion, in transit, in storage, in use. All of that should have a certain level of integrity, meaning that it's not modified at all inappropriately. Again, those that are authorized to alter it is slightly different than those that are unauthorized to alter it. And lastly is availability, and that is essentially having access to a resource when you need access based off of your authorization. If you are an authorized user, and you should have access to it when you need it. This provides the backbone of basic information security. So, we also have what's called a zero trust model, or zero trust security. And basically it's a comprehensive approach to securing all access across the entire organization: network, applications, environment, everything. This approach helps secure the access for users, in devices, services, web services, any types of APIs. Essentially, what the trust model is, it's the principle of a zero trust approach, which is never trust, but always verify. Once verify, then trust. So a zero trust security framework basically prevents unauthorized access, it helps contain breaches, and overall reduces the risk of an attacker actually having lateral movement through the organization. In a zero trust approach, any place at which the access control decisions are required should be considered a perimeter, meaning they're going to have a little extra layer of protection because that's something that could allow an inbound connection. So there's three main pillars for the zero trust framework. That is zero trust from the workforce, zero trust from the workload, and zero trust from the workplace. So workforce, this is the pillar consisting of the staff, the people, the management. Regardless of location, you should be able to secure anything that workforce deals with directly. The workload, it's the pillar concerned with applications that are running in the organization, whether it be in the cloud, in the data center, whether it be on location, whether it be a web server or web app. Anything dealing with that application that the organization uses are going to fall in the workload section. And lastly is the workplace. This is going to be the pillar focusing on secure access to all the devices. Anything attached to the network, whether it be a printer, whether it be a camera, a phone, whether it be an IoT device, anything. This is going to fall in the workplace. So, how do we deal with access control models? We have two main types. We actually have our direct access and mandatory access. These are the two. While the direct access is the least restrictive, and it allows the users to control the access through the data as the owner of that data. where the mandatory access applies a more stricter access and is used by things like the military or large businesses or dealing with critical applications. Essentially, it assigns security labels to the information and enables users with only the access based off the security clearance to access that data. It's about data categorization and classification. Just because you have access to read the accounting folder doesn't mean that you have access to read all of the data in the accounting folder. So mandatory access allows us to set a little bit more granular controls in that regard. Some newer forms of access control models are things like role-based access control. And this is when access to certain resources are based off individuals' roles and responsibilities within the organization. Different roles basically give you different permissions. Essentially, this is more profile-driven. This is also known as a type of non-discretionary access control. We also have what's called attribute-based access control, or ABAC. This allows access based off of attributes of an object to be accessed. Essentially, the subject accessing the resource, the environmental factors regarding how the object could be accessed, things of that nature. That's a little rarer. Normally, DRAC and one of either the role or rule-based are the big ones. You're going to notice that role-based, RBAC, is very similar to rule-based access control. And rule-based, network security staff will specify sets of rules or conditions that are associated with access to information. These rules will set permitted or deny access, like a permit IP or deny IP or other protocols. This is also known as rule-based RBAC. Lastly, there is a time access, and that essentially allows access to network resources based off of time. Role-based is probably, out of the newer options, one of the more common deployments of an access control model. So moving on to AAA usage and operations. So AAA is authentication, authorization, and accounting. So that means these AAA protocols provide the necessary framework to enable scalable access security. A network must be designed to control who is allowed to connect to it, when they're allowed, what they're allowed to do, and things of that nature. That's where the authentication, authorization, and accounting. The accounting will log what they're doing, what they're accessing, and it's being tied back to a specific individual account. Basically, network security policies can also mandate the implementation of a logging-based system that's going to handle the accounting functionality. All tracks back to who is doing what and when. So authentication basically establishes who you are, maybe a username and password combination, but some way to verify that you are you. Authorization basically occurs after authentication and determines what you're allowed to do with what resources. Accounting is the logging of everything. What are you doing? What are you accessing? What are you trying to access? So here's an example of a bank statement. You have authentication. You have a way to verify you are who you are. A debit card with a PIN number. What are you authorized to do? That could be like your credit limit, or that could be your available balance for the day. And then the verification, the logging aspect, will actually be a log of what was spent. So AAA can have a few different ways to authenticate. One of the more common ways is a local authentication. Basically, this is a self-contained authentication method because the authenticated user is against a locally stored username and password. Local AAA is really common for smaller networks. When you have to have a username on a single device, as the devices grow, that becomes harder to manage. So here's an example of local AAA. We have a router. We will actually send a prompt for a username and password. The router will authenticate the username and password using its local database, and then, if appropriate, will allow us to connect. Well, that's one avenue. A more common avenue is server-based AAA authentication. And that is very similar to like a domain or an Active Directory domain services, where you have a server that handles the names, and so we will actually forward the request to a AAA router. The router will actually use that information and authenticate it against a directory service. And if appropriate, we'll say yes. The router doesn't store anything. So the router may prompt the user for like a username and password. Well, the router doesn't check it. The router takes that information that it receives, username and password, and then actually forwards that to the AAA server or the domain server. That will then say yay or nay. If yay, it will respond with you're allowed access. If nay, you're not allowed access. So centralized AAA means it's more scalable, more manageable, and a little bit easier to implement. The more common forms of AAA are Active Directory or other LDAP-based protocols, depending on your environment. If you're a Windows environment, it's more than likely Active Directory. If we're talking device communication, we can centralize AAA using things like Radius or TACACS. Radius allows us to authenticate against a directory service or other AAA services. TACACS does the same thing, but TACACS is Cisco proprietary. Radius is not proprietary to just Cisco. Radius is an open-based standard, so almost all hardware manufacturers support Radius. So the following is a list comparing TACACS to Radius. Functionality. TACACS separates authentication, authorization, and accounting. Basically, it provides a little bit more modularity. Radius combines authentication and authorization, but it keeps accounting separate. While it's less flexible, it's, again, more open source. TACACS, Cisco proprietary, Radius, open source. TACACS uses port 49. Radius uses the more common 1812 and 1813. It can also use 1645 and 1646 UDP-based ports. So there is a protocol for verification. TACACS uses a bidirectional challenge and response CHAP, where Radius uses a unidirectional challenge and the response from the Radius security server to the Radius client, not using CHAP, but using a Radius response. For TACACS confidentiality, again, TACACS does encrypting the entire body of the packet, but it leaves the header. With Radius, it only encrypts the password in the access requests from the client to the server. The remaining packet is unencrypted. Things like username, authorization services, and accountability is unprotected. So that's a negative for Radius. Customization. TACACS does provide authorization of router commands per use and per group basis, while Radius has no option to authorize router commands at all. So accounting. TACACS is very limited. Radius has way more accounting functionality. So accounting normally means logs, verification, logging of everything. So centralized AAA allows for better accounting methods. We can actually log and centralize all log files. This will include all of the configuration commands issued by a user or a device. Everything should be logged. The server should also be using NTP for verification of timestamps. So here's some common accounting information: network access, connectivity accounts, executive accounts, system accounts, command accounts, resource accounts. All of these provide certain level services that are running on a network device that should be logged. A lot of this can provide detailed information that's going on in the network. So that is it for this module. We talked about the CIA triad, we talked about the principle of zero trust, we looked at different access control methods, we looked at AAA and its different fields, and that is all for this module. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out. Thank you.